when it comes to.
Hello. We're here in New York City. Hold on just 1 minute. Thank you for joining. Ah! Oops, something went wrong.
Darren, could you turn that down?
Okay.
You got it?
Yep.
Oh, I actually
Okay.
watched the recent.
Yep.
I don't know how many
Okay.
videos are.
Right on the side.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tibet Center, Kunchub Tardu Lane, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in New York City and northern New Jersey. This is our twice-weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma. Specifically, this is a talk series entitled Dharamsala Through the Eyes of a Western Nun. All the prayers we say are on the website under the FAQ section. Scroll down to prayers. If there's a problem with the sound or anything else, please let Darren or Tony know. And if there's anyone you wish us to pray for at the end, please put their names in the chat box. So we'll start with our prayers. For the prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and width of the West. For all the people living there to care here, their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who is to follow the publishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness. May they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may they spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. And now for the Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the dharmas called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this. Seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no dundas to ignorance, to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge, And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed. Tayata Om Gati Gati Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Soha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you were taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering of the worlds with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the one, the Blessed One. Thank everyone for joining. So there's two things before we begin. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you very much, Tony. Oh dear. I'll be quiet. Now, as usual, we say the bodhicitta and refuge prayer 3 times. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I join the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, now we can begin. So actually you'll notice that I didn't apologize for forgetting the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, because that's my first personal note. During my talk on Wednesday, and I'm sure on my previous ones, I used the word sorry quite a few times, which someone remarked on. This isn't the first time or place that people have mentioned that I do this, so I would like to explain in some detail without apologizing for doing so. It's purely a cultural background thing. I was born in England in the UK, so my parents and grandparents are English. At that point, there was some diversification, and one great-grandparent was born in Wales, and 2 great-great-grandparents were born in Ireland. But enough of my family tree. As a UK person, I was raised to use the word sorry nearly as much as the word hello, and on the whole, not in a self-deprecating way. Just sorry. So sorry just has a wide range of uses. First is the well-known and often used in America, which is more apologetic. Sorry, I stepped on your foot, officer. It is also used instead of things like, I don't hear you, sorry. There is also the sorry, which is more heartfelt, similar to it's a shame or it's too bad. Example, sorry your wife ran off with the milkman and took all your money. So I am just accustomed to using it. But I would like to say, oops, something went wrong. Oh, there we go. Phew. Sorry. I'm still reading. It's okay. No, it just shh. So I know that in America, most of the times it's used in terms of self-reproach and carries a tinge of weakness. So I will work on not using it as often, which I don't mind at all, because on the whole, we don't need no stinking sorries. So I hope all of you at least understand Blazing Saddles or are fans of Troop Beverly Hills. Okay, on a more serious note, the second thing I wanted to do was correct something from my talk last week. When talking about jealousy, I felt I left you without inspiration that it can be removed. Yes, it's completely removed in all forms, the gross and the subtle forms, when we reach the 8th level bhumi. But it can be lessened by such a great degree long before that. You don't need to realize emptiness directly before making a mega huge dent in the afflictions. I think sometimes people and even teachers get stuck on the first and second noble truths, the truth of our suffering and the cause of our suffering, forgetting the huge importance of the third and fourth truths, the truth that suffering can be removed and that there is a path and a way to removing it. The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree to find a solution to our problems. He didn't just sit there just to find all of our faults. Otherwise, I doubt he would have done it. I've attended several classes about how bad the afflictions are, how we are naturally doomed to follow them. The afflictions are poisons, but we still instinctively follow and trust them. We have ignorance, we have attachment, we have anger, jealousy, pride, which are all destroying us. We have the 3 poisons, ignorance, attachment, and anger. We have the 5 poisons, those 3 plus pride and jealousy. From the Abhidharma, we have 6 root destructive emotions, the 3 poisons plus doubt, pride, and wrong views. We also have at least 20 secondary afflictions, and yes, I will list them all. Rage, resentment, spitefulness, cruelty, envy, deception, pretension, lack of shame, disregard, concealment, miserliness, self-satisfaction, lack of faith, laziness, carelessness, forgetfulness, inattention, lethargy, excitement and distraction. We are full to the brim of destructive emotions, which is true and worth pointing out. But I always want to say, okay, then what? Why point out the negative if you aren't going to point out the positive or the remedy? It can be like discussing how the world is falling apart. It leaves you disheartened, sometimes sad, and uninspired to do anything. At least it does me. I'm sure it's not meant to make you feel doom and gloomy, but I think it's important to put as much emphasis on the positive. Yes, we need to know and understand our many unvirtuous actions of body, speech, and mind, but we need to also focus on the fact that they can be removed. With these two, knowing the afflictions and knowing they can be removed, we will be more inspired to work on getting rid of them. The Buddha said our afflictions can be removed because that's what he discovered when he reached enlightenment. But we don't need to take this on blind faith. We can actually test it out for ourselves. And when can we do this? If we aren't doing it right now, we can try in the next moment. Every moment is new. We can start fresh each moment. Good old subtle impermanence to the rescue. That breath of fresh air, with that positive inspiration, we can keep mindful, keep applying those antidotes, and gradually change and become less jealous. As His Holiness said in his last talk, as our mind is empty, there is no need for attachment, hatred, or jealousy. The subtle mind's nature is pure and without jealousy and any other afflictions. And I'm not going to apologize for drinking water.
No. Enjoy.
Well, I did. Oh, darn. Sorry. Okay. Well, kind of in a funny. One antidote for jealousy I found to be extremely helpful was the one of the 5 wisdoms of the Dhyana Buddhas. I can never say that right. The one related to amagosiddha, the purification of jealousy and the purification of mental formations, or also called compositional factors, which all really boil down to our predispositions. It's called the all-accomplishing wisdom. We might not have this enlightened activity, but it can still be applied to our regular lives until we reach enlightenment. It's doing as much as we can, working as hard as we can, doing the best we can all the time, going out to objects, wanting to help and relate, and do that to the best of our ability. Otherwise, we get jealous when others act. At first, I poo-pooed the idea of applying this antidote. I was stuck on the idea that you should work on the affliction directly, analyzing it, and really get to know it. I mean, that's good. I realized that jealousy is an ugly emotion, and I wanted to remove it. But what really helps is applying an antidote. Most antidotes are the opposite emotion. To lessen greed, you work on becoming more content. To soften hatred, strengthen love. To reduce criticizing others, cultivate appreciation and gratitude towards them. To remove miserliness, work on increasing generosity. To get rid of self-contempt, apply self-love or self-compassion. And to remove jealousy, generate empathetic joy. But this antidote was a little different. To remove jealousy, do the best you can and know that you have done your best and be fine with that. I did it. And try that and actually know that you did it. But what is there to lose in trying to apply an antidote? The only thing that you might lose is just a bit of time. So I did, and I was pleasantly surprised that it actually worked. I mean, not actually, but it did work. Last year, I was in a retreat at a nunnery, and the teacher was talking very highly of one of the students. She was young, pretty, extremely smart, had her PhD in microbiology or some other intense subject, and had opened a wonderful nonprofit and was helping many people. I got a little jealous for a moment. Then after the retreat, I learned about all-accomplishing wisdom. I thought about it, not just once, but contemplated and thought about it often. It didn't take a great deal of effort to apply it to my daily life, as I have always been more or less responsible and have tried my hardest. But now I put more effort into not acknowledging that I had done so and rejoicing in that. Being aware that I was going out to objects, wanting to help and relate to them with the best of my ability, and rejoicing afterwards, at least sometimes. I sometimes find it hard to remember to rejoice. I think that's something left over from my low self-esteem. Anyway, this year I went to the same retreat, and the teacher spoke very highly of another student who had also accomplished many great things. This time I had no jealousy. I thought to myself, You have done your best. You are trying all you can do to help others, and you are trying hard to work to follow the path. That was enough for me. When I didn't feel like anything was lacking in me, I didn't get jealous. I was amazed. It makes sense, though. Jealousy comes from not having something we want, but if we are satisfied with who we are and what we have, then jealousy won't arise. I was then able to be happy for the other person's success, which is such a healthier emotion and response. I thought that was huge. It was great to see evidence that applying antidotes worked. When His Holiness discussed the importance of faith in Buddhism, he also often quotes the Sutra of Dense Array. Just as a goldsmith tests gold by rubbing, burning, and cutting before buying it, so too you should examine my words before accepting them, and not just out of respect for me. And I felt like I had done that. I had rubbed and cut and burned that gold, and it worked, so I bought it. Yay. What I loved about this antidote is that even those who are bedridden can apply it by saying sadhanas to their best ability, contemplating the Dharma, such as the four measurable thoughts, immeasurable love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, as well as making as many offerings as possible, even if it's just mental. Give it a try and get back to me next year to see if you had any improvement. Okay, I would also like to add that sometimes you can remove destructive emotions by just understanding why you do things, where the behavior initially came from, and the reason why it started. There might no longer be any need for it at all. For example, I'm an only child. When I was with my parents, I threw my share of temper tantrums and sulking fits. If I don't get my way, I'm going to sit and sulk instead of going out with my friends and playing in this nice sunny day. Then, when I left home, I carried this behavior with me to work. I tried this. So once I had a good sulking fit with one of my bosses and quickly realized there was no hope of a positive result. My boss didn't care if I didn't go out on the nice sunny day or I didn't eat my lunch. In fact, they liked it because I was working longer hours. But that didn't end my behavior, as I was not really aware that I was doing this. It just seemed such a natural thing to do and automatic. So I continued, but I did it just with myself, like an inner temper tantrum or a sulking thing. Finally, I saw and understood that it no longer had a purpose. This learned and familiar behavior was now silly and was just making myself miserable with no hope of getting anything. I was just clinging to a habit from my childhood that had changed from being useful in some way to not, and in fact, it actually hurt me. At least now it did. When I was young, you just get your candy or whatever you're sulking about. It's good to reevaluate how some of your harmful destruction behaviors that started in your childhood, it's good to reevaluate them. Some might have changed and they might now be harmful. For example, you might have put up an emotional barrier because of a specific person or an incident in your past, but you forgot to take it down the barrier when that person left or the situation changed. We clean our closets once in a while. We go through things we don't want or can't wear anymore, and we give those to the Salvation Army or other donation places. It's good to also do that with your mental states, especially those that now cause you harm and are destructive. Just don't give those to the Salvation Army. Then what's left over, you then apply antidotes, the opposite or close to the opposite emotion. Even from a simple mathematical idea, antidotes make sense. The opposite of positive 2 is negative 2. Put them together and you get 0. Jealousy plus the opposite of jealousy is 0. No jealousy. It's also similar to Newton's third law of motion. Every action has an opposite or equal and opposite reaction, except in this case, it's acting on the same object, so the forces cancel each other out. I guess Isaac Newton knew about applying antidotes. He definitely applied the antidote of wisdom to his thinking, lessening his ignorance about conventional reality as well as ours. Anyway, back to my path. Whammo, I was in India. I flew into Delhi. Just the taxi ride alone from international to the domestic airport was intense. All that traffic weaving in and out, honking, sometimes driving with inches of each other without even flinching. Forget the use of those pesky white painted dividing lines in the road. My thought was, no way could I drive here. Luckily, some of my Indian coworkers at my last job had warned me about driving, especially in Delhi. They assured me that it might look like insanity in vehicular form, but there was an actual magical rhythm to it all, a collective energy like a synchronized dance. You just had to know the right moves. Seeing it for myself, I had to believe they were right. Otherwise, why were there no accidents? I'm sure there are accidents, but I just haven't seen any. My amazement grew when I saw a slow-moving small truck with "Please honk" painted in large red script on the side. At first, I thought it was a sarcastic phrase meant to stop people from honking, like the currently popular bumper sticker, "If you honk at me, I will kill myself," which is actually popular. I had no idea. Yeah, you can buy those. But then I saw another truck with it painted on the back, and another, and another. So it probably wasn't some weird, angry sarcasm. It also probably wasn't a trendy thing, because otherwise, why would you paint it? Make it more permanent versus a bumper sticker. I couldn't figure it out. The trucks in Dharamsala also have it painted on the side and the back. I don't know if many of you people have been to Dharamsala, where His Holiness as well as Ling Rinpoche live. Many of the roads there are very narrow, especially in the hilly regions. Once I was behind a very slow truck. The taxi driver honked at the truck. The truck driver didn't yell or raise his fists, but he did pull over so we could pass. I didn't think much of it at the time, but then it dawned on me that they actually want you to honk if you're behind them and not able to pass. Then they would know to pull it off to the side and let you by. Simply amazing. Not honking, not out of anger. Wow. Everyone on earth honks to avoid accidents, but honking to help someone? I won't go on about how that wouldn't float here in the West, because I think that's obvious. In most places, it's more like, I don't care if I'm a slow-moving vehicle and I'm making you late. I won't move an inch out of my way for you. In fact, if I'm an angry and spiteful person, I might even make it harder for you to pass me. This kind of attitude really divides us and them, me and you. There is no feeling of oneness of humanity with that kind of thinking. But that is how many of us are raised. We are the most important, not you. Maybe not the extreme of it's my way or the highway, but we naturally think the world revolves around me, what I want and not what you want, what I don't want and not what you don't want. I will not move an inch for you kind of thing. Flashback even farther, back before even Newton and his third law of motion, back to 1452. Everyone believed the world was the center of the entire universe. They believed the sun and all other planets revolved around the earth. Then all of a sudden Copernicus came along and said, no, that is not correct. You are wrong. We are not the center. He had discovered the earth actually revolves around the sun and not the other way around. He proved this with his naked eye. Galileo then, right behind him, proved it with his telescope. Many people hated the idea of not being the center, as well as I'm sure that they didn't like being wrong. And because this suddenly demeaned our status. We're not so important. Not being the center was hard for some to take and too hard for others. Copernicus died of old age shortly after his findings were published, but Galileo was put into prison for his findings and then was under house arrest for the rest of his life.
Really?
Yes. I'm sorry. It's not surprising that people acted negatively. It's actually really scary to think of ourselves as not the center. Kind of like losing their comfort cloth or security blanket, like the one Linus had in that cute Snoopy comic. When you are the center, there is also a certain amount of pride. Feeling that you are better than others feels good, otherwise we wouldn't do it. Clinging to the afflictions can bring a sense of security. Kind of like when you're walking down a steep path, you cling to the handrail. But don't be fooled. This is not the path to long-lasting happiness. Instead, it just leads to more suffering, and it tightens the grasping at an inherently existent self that doesn't exist. And this grasping at an inherently existent self is what we are trying to remove on the Buddhist path, not strengthen. It's actually the whole point of the path. It is the remedy to all our suffering that Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree. Pride is a very selfish emotion. Out of all the 5 poisons, ignorance, attachment, anger, pride, and jealousy, to me, it feels like the one that mentally isolates you from others the most. Everyone besides Aryas on the 8th level Bhumi has each affliction to some degree. Even as far back as when I started studying with Chungla Rinpoche, besides ignorance, my biggest affliction has been pride. It started out as a non-dharma antidote to my low self-esteem. I needed more self-confidence to counterbalance my low self-esteem, but that went too far and turned into pride, thinking I was better than others. I didn't make it go away as it felt good. My inherently existent self, that one that doesn't even exist, just lapped it up, just loved it like anything. There is a fine line between many emotions, definitely one between pride and self-confidence, kind of like how there's a fine line between ice cream and a gooey, drippy mess. One is very helpful, and we can't really function properly without it. That's self-confidence. The other is very harmful, pride. Pride is not just harmful to ourselves, as it makes us reify and strengthen our idea of inherently existent self and our grasping to that inherently existent self. Pride also hurts those around you. For pride, you need to have other people around you to feel better than, to compare yourself to. On the other hand, self-confidence just involves you. You aren't relying on others to feel self-confident. To feel more important than others, we need to think of them as less important. And the way you think and feel influences the actions of your body and speech. The actions of your mind affect the actions of your body and speech. Therefore, if you feel others are less important, that will come out in your behavior, even if it's subtle. With the my way or the highway approach, or the I won't move an inch for you attitude, those you interact with will react to your pride and arrogance in some way. Some might get angry and walk away, but most will probably feel less important, inferior, maybe even lonely, lowly, and not worthy in your presence. In Shantideva's Bodhisattva Way of Life, in the eighth chapter, the meditation chapter, verses 140 to 154, and don't worry, I'm not going to read them all. He uses this approach to help us understand how pride is harmful to others by looking at it from the other person's side. Would you want to feel lowly or inferior? No way. Well, that's what pride does. Just as a semi-quick side note, though, I would like to mention that there's another interpretation of these verses, which I will mention. A bodhisattva might try and act with pride towards someone who has a predisposition to feeling inferior to help them stop that. If you keep pushing someone, they will probably fight back. So I will just read 3 of those verses instead of 15. This was written, by the way, by the point of view of the person who is made to feel inferior by the bodhisattva pretending to have pride. He is honored, but I am not. I have not found wealth such as he. He is praised, but I am despised. He is happy, but I suffer. I have to do all the work while he remains comfortably at rest. He is renowned as great in this world, but I am inferior with no good qualities at all. Now here comes the happy ending when the person feeling inferior stands up for themselves. But what do you mean I have no good qualities? I have all good qualities. Compared to him, he is inferior, and compared to many, I am high. Yay, it worked. But please don't try this at home without Arya supervision. Get it? Arya supervision instead of adult supervision. Sorry. Yeah. Also, I found a very helpful quote on pride on an article online. While pride can sometimes carry a sense of ego, on the other hand, self-acceptance and confidence emphasizes a more balanced and authentic relationship with oneself. Pride is easily obtained because it allows us whatever comforting illusion we need to have the feeling we want to have, rather than to face a painful truth. And what is that painful truth? We are not the center of the universe. Well, now we get to put on our Copernicus hat, or maybe your Galileo hat, because he had really fun hats. With that hat on, you get to discover that the truth is not painful. When you are totally in tune with reality, or truth as we call it, you become a Buddha. Any step towards being in tune with reality, therefore, makes us happier, truly happy, not that puffed up, distorted, temporary happiness that comes with pride. Yes, you need to be a bit brave to face the truth sometimes, but that's not because it's scary, it's just because it's new. Anything new can be scary at first. But come on in, the water's fine. Living in the reality where we are all equal in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering is the world Rinpoche lived in, as well as His Holiness the Dalai Lama. This is the world where great compassion is born and where its resultant bliss resides. Recently, His Holiness the Dalai Lama spoke about the need to abandon the view that we are better and more important than others, specifically the us versus them attitude, along with its victory for us and defeat for them. He referred to it as a narrow view of the world. Instead, the view of oneness of humanity widens our perspective. With it, the dual view of us versus them lessens. The boundary starts to blur. Grasping at an inherently existent self starts to loosen, along with self-cherishing. Once I applied this view and turned a very sad and uncomfortable feeling into something manageable. My dad is a composer. Sometimes I think of him when I fill my 7th water bowl each morning. The 7th or last one is the gift of music. For some reason, I had really thought about my dad that morning when pouring the water. An hour later, I attended a class on Atisha's Garland of Precious Gems by Geshe Lakdor. Near the end of the class, he started discussing what to do if a non-Buddhist family member was in the death process. How you should not talk about rebirth or bardo, as that would not bring them comfort, but talk about things that would bring them happiness and comfort. He actually used the example of what to do if it was a musician. So he said that you could show them instruments or talk about music. When the online class ended, I was quite freaked out as it made me think about my dad, the musician. But when I opened up my view to all of humanity, that sad and uncomfortable feeling dispersed. I had inadvertently run into an antidote for pride. Pride because my dad is more important than any other father. And grasping at that idea brings a lot of suffering. If we group and consider sentient beings all together, in other words, equalizing with everyone, it widens our perspective, so we no longer categorize and compare, which leads to pride. It didn't stop me from loving my father at all and caring about him greatly, but it allowed me to be more level-headed and not freak out. Freaking out never helps anyone, not ourselves, nor anyone else around us. Oops, I nearly drank the microphone. That's so funny. Equalizing is also one of the 5 wisdoms of the Dhyana Buddhas, which are an aspect of our Buddha nature. The one related to Ratnasambhava, the purification of pride and the purification of the feeling aggregate. It is called the equalizing wisdom. We might not have this we might not have this as enlightened activity yet, but it can be applied to our regular lives now with the idea of the oneness of humanity. But enough about pride. It's time we went back to India. The next thing I was amazed when driving around was the amount of cattle everywhere. On the street, in the middle of the street, on the side of the street, on a small, narrow path right in front of me, standing, walking, huddling around in a group. Some of these cows, or bulls, had huge horns, well over a foot. I tried to take a picture of a zebu, which has very large horns, like those you see mounted over fireplaces, and a slight camel hump. They must be quite camera shy, as it beelined for me when my camera focused on them. I quickly decided that instead of taking a photo, I would find a good picture online on the internet to send to my parents. Besides calling them each evening, I also send them a picture of my activities once a week. It's a part of that whole nice daughter, good nun package that you see right in front of you. Anyway, once I was in a big traffic jam. The taxi driver thought it was a really slow-moving bus or tractor, but it was actually 2 huge bulls fighting in the middle of the lane. There was no way anyone was going to get out and try and move them. There's nothing you could do. Finally, they moved just to one lane and we were able to drive by them. It was an amazing scene. But life as a cow in India probably isn't perfect, but lucky for them, they live longer than other cows in other parts of the world because killing cows is condemned in India. Krishna, a Hindu deity who is highly revered in India, was a cowherd and is known as being the protector of cows. Lucky cows, to have a protector. In this case, protection means a longer life. Not bad. Who doesn't want that? I think everyone likes the idea of having protection, someone looking out for you, someone on your side, making you feel safe and have no troubles. In other words, refuge. Refuge from the crazy world around us. Refuge is what defines us as Buddhists. Taking refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. These three can be relied upon and trusted. They provide support and guidance during all of life's ups and downs. The first being the Buddha, the teacher, the guide. He is a role model and helps to inspire us, as he was a regular person just like us who made it to the state of perfect, complete happiness and peace. He kindly and very skillfully taught others how to attain the state through his 84,000 teachings. This is the second jewel, the Dharma, his words and teachings. The Sangha jewel are those that help us along the path. Traditionally, this refers to practitioners who have reached a very high level in their knowledge and understanding, so much so that they can be trusted enough for us to follow and for them to give us guidance. That is, bodhisattvas on the first bhumi. They have reached the path of seeing and they have realized emptiness directly. The more widely accepted meaning, especially in Western culture, is the general Buddhist community, those at Dharma centers, friends on the Buddhist path, one's Buddhist peeps, as they say. They give you needed support, camaraderie, a place to exchange ideas and gain inspiration. The word refuge is used as these three give you safe direction. This doesn't mean that life will be perfect while following the path, but we can have confidence that along with a good motivation and conviction, we will become happier and better people. When I first started studying Buddhism, placing my trust in this way, I felt a new sense of freedom and openness which cleared my mind. I began to worry less about things. I come from a long line of worriers, not warriors, but worriers, at least on my father's side. My dad was born in a small village called Wargrave. My mother jokingly says there must be something in the Wargrave water to make them all worry so much, because his mother did also. I worry not just about big things, but a multitude of silly things, silly small things. And being a detailed-oriented person didn't help. It just gave me more details to worry about. Larry Eisenberg pointed out how useless and pointless worry is with his famous phrase, "Worry is today's mouse eating tomorrow's cheese," as well as worry is a disease of doubt which revolves around fear. I used to needlessly chase thoughts of worry, thinking that doing so would resolve the issue at hand. Instead, it would just create fear and self-perpetuate worry. Worry, along with doubt, attacks and destroys any optimism about a situation current or anticipated. When I noticed I was doing this, I thought of my refuge, which brought some faith that everything would be okay and work out for the best. Being a big worrier, I had to do this quite often initially, but I was amazed how quickly it started to lessen. I started to feel lighter, refreshed, and less tied to sadness or worry. My refuge took a slightly different tone. It still provided safe refuge, but the emphasis changed. Initially, refuge laid out a path to follow. It gave me direction in life along with a purpose. Then it began to act as a safe refuge from a storm, like a strong, well-built lighthouse. Following the Buddhist path, relying and depending on the three jewels, enabled me to handle life's storms a bit better, such as being more patient when someone at work wasn't nice to me. This occurred just as my trust in the three jewels had deepened. You need to trust in something if you're going to allow it to be your guiding light and the basis for changing yourself. The more I saw positive change in myself, like not acting angrily to something that would have set me off 2 years earlier, the more my trust grew. I felt like the storms in life were getting less severe. Then I hit a weird kind of roadblock. I started to put a lot of emphasis on little storms. It seemed that I wanted to have some storms in my life. I clung to having them. I'm not a drama queen, but storms and strategies can sometimes make us feel more alive. Our ego gets to have more of the spotlight. It might be something as small as someone not responding to a message right away, or someone making fun of me. I would keep reminding myself of the event and replaying it in my mind over and over and over again. This just built up more feelings of hurt and resentment. I had become a factory for creating mountains out of molehills, and presto, I had my storm. I then applied my antidotes and brought the storm onto the path, but I was the one who had created the storm in the first place. Very strange. It's like I wanted to create extra useless paperwork to keep myself busy. Then it dawned on me that we create storms out of everything. That's what reification does. We make storms by our wrong views, and then we need to seek refuge to ride out the storm. Boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could just not create the storm in the first place and leave the molehill alone? One day we will be able to. But just knowing I was doing that helped a great deal. When should we stop? Sorry. Okay. Okay, so I'll just finish this one paragraph. At this time, my refuge focused on, oh yeah, this is a good place to stop. At this time, my refuge had focused on just suffering, the suffering from the storms in my life. But what about the happiness aspect? My happiness was still coming from outside. A delicious meal, dreams of meeting my soulmate, hanging out with friends and family, finding the perfect place to live, wearing my favorite outfit and feeling like I looked pretty. My next level of refuge was letting go of the idea that true happiness could be found from outside things, and only the three jewels could lead to my real happiness. With that, I felt I was ready for ordination. Yay! So we'll actually continue with that on those lines next Wednesday. So now we'll go to the prayers. Is there anyone in the chat? Oh, do we? Okay. Uh-oh. How come I can't find the prayer? I can't find it. Here we go. Sorry about that. Wilhelmina Fullwood. Sorry, I see that. Oh, there's quite a few people. Oh dear. Okay, so Victorina de la Sacha Ceros, Corlia Ruby, and Jonathan Augustin. Oh dear, I'm so bad. Brios de Sacha. Sorry, Carol, I pronounced all of those, I'm sure, wrong. And Christopher Battaglia. Oh, and then hold on. The 3 names posted. Okay. Oh, that's a shame. With 2 children that died in a ride. Okay. So we'll begin. I prostrate to the omniscient one. Thus the Buddha Bhagavat Tathagata Arhat Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and victorious one, the Usagata, the newer of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans, is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the form of desire. He is not tamed by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed of dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all wisdoms. He abides in the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He Nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the virtues of Buddha Bhagavat. The Holy Dharma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. His words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavad teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one purpose. It brings discriminating awareness for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavad is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is a renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely. They enter insightfully. They enter straightforwardly. They enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a period of glorious merit. They are completely receiving gifts. They are generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a fully field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be in a completely around. So I just wanted to let you know that my last sign-off phrase didn't go over very well with some people, so I'm trying a new one. I'm not apologizing. So I'm going to try this one, and you guys can let me know if you like or not. So, waves of love to you all. Yay! Thank you very much, and enjoy your evening.
Everyone, any
You could ask
questions?
your question now.
Yeah.
Oh, I